What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Friday Mastermind for over 5 years now. We've been doing this. Usually I have my wingman, Todd Bookspan, who started this with me 5 years ago. But today I have Deborah Bird. What's up, Deborah?
What's up? Good morning, everybody.
So Deborah and I are going to interview someone very special, Rosa Briggs. She is a top producer in the Pacific Northwest, just about 10 minutes outside of Seattle. She's been a top producer I've wanted to interview for years, for a couple of reasons. One, she's super successful. I mean, she's been a $100 million a year producer for over 3 times, Rosa? 3 times you've hit over $1 million?
Yep, 3 times.
Cool. And you did what, like 128 million last year, 127. And guys, she's still in striking distance to hit over 100 million. She said somewhere between 97 and 100. Is that right, Rosa?
Yes, so close. The
So
year
close.
is not done.
That's awesome.
Well,
you go, girl.
Yeah. Yeah. So to be within striking distance of 100 million in a year like this is pretty special. She also does her and her team do a lot of total cost analysis. So in the past 30 days, they've done 128. And over the number of years she's used Mortgage Coach, her team's done 8,256 total cost analysis, guys. So that's 800 or over 8,000 times where they've helped a family make a more informed decision, a more confident decision. In addition to getting into mortgage debt, they've got a little financial literacy because of the way Rosa and her team do business. So Rosa, welcome to this first time interview in the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel. Yes,
thank you. Glad to be here. Feel very honored to talk to these people that I've watched for so long.
Good. Well, and you've told me no for a long time. I've reached out. Come on, Rosa. I mean, the company you work for, American Pacific, you're like the top Mortgage Coach user. You're one of the top 10 producers, and she keeps like, no, Dave. Why did I get a yes this time?
It's a challenge to myself. So, I mean, we've been busy the last couple of years, and just day to day was just being very focused. But now I always challenge myself, don't keep saying no just because it's hard. Do it if it makes sense. So here I am.
So listen to that, guys. So doing this kind of content is not a joyful, easy thing for Rosa, but she knows it makes sense to improve leadership skills. And so my takeaway is, in this season, it's just get better at things I can get better at and challenge myself when I can. Is that what we heard there?
Yeah, exactly. Just keep challenging.
Right.
Well, and 2 things there really, Dave, you were still persistent and relentless and asking. So I think it's important to identify that, just because you get told no once, twice, 3 times, keep at it when you know that there's value there. And then just to Rosa, I mean, what a great example of someone who is stepping out of their comfort zone. And maybe that's the first takeaway we should all write down is, what are you resisting because it's hard? That if you just took that first step and you say yes this time, what opportunity could it bring you? And maybe that's just a gift of providing to other people of how you've gotten to where you are. But I would say that's the first takeaway is be persistent, even if you get told no. And number 2, what are you saying no to that maybe you should say yes and step into that discomfort?
Totally agree. Well, let's get to know your practice. I want to do this conversation in a couple of chapters. One, just get to know your mortgage practice a little better. What is working best for you in this market? Clearly anyone that's done that many total cost analysis, I want to hear you and your team's process. And then we'll save the 3rd chapter for just the question after the question. So anyone listening to this, if you have questions for Rosa or myself or Deborah, put those in comments. So Rosa, describe your team and your practice for everyone.
The team, I didn't think about that. So we have a group of us, I think it's about 6 right now, and we're very focused on the client care. So I have 2 people that help with the lead interviews, following up with them. My number 1 job is phone calls and meetings. So they schedule the introductory consultations, the initial consults with the clients. So I am meeting with every client up front. And then my team helps with the weekly follow-up after that. And then when they're under contract, I get a meeting scheduled and I meet with them again and we do our under contract consultation. And then I have touch points along the way that I touch with the client, check in, make sure everything is going well. And then the team handles the day-to-day.
Got it. And how many past clients do you have, or how many people in your database are being monitored in your CRM?
Yeah, I don't ever look at that number. So
Right.
I have no benchmark.
Well, let me know. We'll do a follow-up on that. But that is another note before the call. She uses Total Expert as her CRM. Obviously, she uses Mortgage Coach. Her database is being monitored by Sales Boomerang, and she also uses HomeBot. So she's, in my opinion, she's using all the right technologies to be a lender for life and to really help consumers achieve financial freedom faster. I mean, at the end of the day, we as loan officers can really valuable. So why don't you describe that, because you have such a care for your clients. What's your role as a loan officer to your clients, and maybe answer that, like, why are you so committed to giving everybody a total cost analysis at the same time?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, buying a home is a big deal. Financing a home is a big deal. And that's what I tell my clients. So I'm here as their mortgage advisor to partner with them and give them the tools and the advice so they can make a decision. So, whether it be the CRM or HomeBot or Mortgage Coach, this is how I help advise them and really stay connected with them, not just before, during, but after. Also, Mortgage Coach, I feel like we live and breathe that every day, because it helps us figure out, okay, what do they qualify for? What's the best way to structure this? What's the best use of their funds? How do we get this offer accepted and still meet their budget? I mean, whatever question it is, we're in Mortgage Coach figuring it out.
So do you provide the TCA like right up front, like at pre-qual, and then do you do another one as soon as you get an executed contract, or how does that TCA journey work with your clients?
Great question. So the initial consultation always have a TCA. It is education, budget, kind of like, okay, what's the direction we're going to head? Then when they're out making offers, it's common that we're doing TCAs again, at least 1 to 2, because now they have a real home. They want to make an offer. What does it really look like now? And then when they're under contract, another TCA. Okay, now we've got the home. Let's dial in which structure you really want. And really, that's when we dive in a little bit more to like the graph portion, the short term and the long term.
And then
Go ahead.
annual asset reviews, are you pretty religious and strict on making sure that every client on the anniversary of their closing that they're getting like an updated TCA, or how does that work post-closing for you?
Right. So honestly, in the past, I have not been good about the mortgage reviews and the annual reviews. We actually started that a couple of years ago, and it's been just amazing to have that touch point. I can't say we do it for every single one, but we make a phone call. And if I can get like any type of meeting with them, I will do a TCA for everyone.
Now, just curiosity, how have you leveraged the TCA to acquire new real estate partners? And are you doing that in today's market where we're seeing a trend of kind of having to cast a wider net, where the agent business is down, so you almost need triple the amount of partners? How are you acquiring new partners, maintaining the partners you have, and are you leveraging, is there a certain TCA that you're using more often than others? Like, how are you capturing the business to be? I mean, that's your numbers this year is fantastic. So we'd all love to know that secret sauce.
I think it's not that we don't sometimes offer things for agents or do trainings and things like that, but it's more about showing them, hey, this is what we do for your clients. This is how we take care of your clients. And the TCAs is a huge integral part of that. a realtor knowing that I'm looking at their clients' finances in short-term and long-term and really trying to figure out the best way for an offer to get accepted and for them to qualify is very important to the agents I work with.
So you know yourself and your practice really, really well. You know, how would you describe why you're so successful? Like if there was you know, just you self-assessing, you know, we are great at this, or we focus on this, you know, how would you describe what makes your mortgage practice special and successful?
It's a really great question. I think it's just honoring the commitments I make to my clients and partners, in that we care, we're transparent, we communicate. And I know that's odd because everyone should communicate, but it seems to be the number one thing. And we don't forget about our clients, and we're very personalized. When I'm meeting with a client, I am focused on them and what is the best for them. And they feel that way throughout the whole process. And I really think that that's one of our superpowers.
And in the prep I've had and what I've heard you say so far, it is that you make that customer experience and that lifetime relationship with that customer your number one priority, like a bigger priority than realtor relationships. Would that be fair to say that you make that your single biggest priority?
Yes, absolutely.
And then consistency, you know, it sounds like, well, I mean, I just look at how consistent you are with Mortgage Coach. I have a feeling that whatever you adopt as a, you know, a best practice in your team, you guys consistently execute those things. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. I'm very process focused. So we got it in the process. We are going to do it very consistently.
Yeah.
So
And go ahead, Deborah.
Go ahead. Oh, if you had to break down that process, like if I'm in LO and I'm thinking, okay, what does your typical week look like? Do you theme your days? Do you do the 40 agent calls on Mondays? Like what are those non-negotiables, whether you do them by noon or not, that you do in a week that without a doubt, anyone who's listening to this, if you just focused on these activities consistently, they could get the results that you've seen because you've done it repeatedly over and over? Are there,
Right.
What would you say those things are?
Definitely theme day calls. Like every day there's a theme. This is what we're going to focus on. As far as, okay, we're calling agents, we're calling everybody in process. We have got to touch on all our pre-approvals and, you know, people out there looking every week. Those who we've talked to, but we don't have a pre-approval for. So that way we're touching base with everybody weekly, as much as we can. And then it's meetings. To me, it's the phone calls, touching base with as many as I can, and then in-person Zoom meetings.
Now, I did notice not a huge social media presence, which is okay. So I'm a social media nerd, but you know, it just shows you've been successful without a whole lot of social media. Is there any reason that you haven't been on social, or is that something that in the future you think you would want to be more aggressive on, or has that just been another discomfort thing that you haven't taken on?
I mean, it's definitely on the board as something to increase in priority. I personally am not a big social person. Like I've never personally logged into Instagram. I have an Instagram, but that is because someone on my team helps me with all of that. It's never been my thing. So yeah. I'm not anti it at all. It's just not a personal thing for me.
All good. I just had to ask.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's
so
important. I know it's important.
Well, it's, you know, like everything. I mean, there's value in it, but also, you know, you got to pick what you're going to participate in and crush it there. So before we get to where you're actually showing strategies of how you're, you know, giving advice to consumers and how that's valuable to realtors, I would love to know how you position yourself at the point of sale. I call it like a value prop script. My guess is you're not necessarily using a script, but you have some phrases and you have some things that you say consistently as you're framing yourself and your advice over time. Anything come to mind that you could share, like any scripting that you have or consistent phrases you use at the point of sale?
Great question. Whatever comes out of my mouth at the time. Let me see. Part of it is I'm just trying to picture myself walking into the meeting and is really trying to break the ice, trying to get them to open up and say, okay, why are you even buying a home? Why is this important for you? Trying to just start the conversation that way. And then build in a little bit of who I am, and make it personal. Like, okay, I'm married, I have kids, they've grown up somehow, and I'm got some gray hair and I'm old. I don't know what happened. And then go, okay, as a mortgage advisor, who am I as a mortgage advisor to you, which I mentioned earlier, right? Just, I'm here to guide you through. And I feel like that takes a little bit of a wall down at the beginning of the conversation, that I'm not here to sell them something. Like, this is going to be a good conversation, whatever they need. Is it education? Is it strategy? Is it what is it? And establishing that up front dictates the whole rest of the conversation.
Cool.
So two questions that come to mind on that is, are you seeing a trend really in the last like 30, 60 days of the types of clients who are applying with you right now, whether it's they're tired of renting, living with mom and dad? There was a very interesting, the 2022 NAR home buying and selling report recently came out. It was pretty fascinating to see those statistics with even millennials and Gen Zs. But so my first question is, are you seeing a trend and what is it? And then my second question is, where would you say most of your business comes from, like from a referral source?
So as far as the trend of what I'm seeing right now is first-time home buyers. I mean, it's typical for certain markets to ebb and flow. Right now, I can tell my average loan amount's down a little bit in this quarter versus earlier in the year, and it's first-time home buyers, because now's really their opportunity. So instead of being negative about this market, it's like, okay, what opportunity is there? First-time home buyers, and that is what I'm seeing right now.
Now, when you hear their motivation, is it because they're tired of renting, or are they, because that NAR report, I was really surprised how many are living with family before they go buy their first home. So from a messaging standpoint, I kept pushing messages like, are you tired of renting? And now I've kind of shifted to, are you tired of living with mom and dad, just by looking at the most recent data. So what would you say their motivation? Are you hearing it's rent?
I don't think I hear anything consistently. I hear all the above, like, hey, we're paying so much in rent, why don't we just buy a home? Hey, we've dreamed of buying a home for so long, we've saved up money, let's look at it. Or, hey, I've been living with mom and dad. I mean, all of those things.
Yeah. And then referral sources, if you had to break down like top 3.
45% of business comes from repeat and client referrals.
Wow.
50% from my realtor agents, and 5% other, like business partners, web, things like that.
That is a trend that I've heard just in these classes I've been teaching with real estate agents. I feel like the top agents right now, they all tell me their business comes from their database. Referrals from a database, repeat clients. That's great. Do you have it?
Yeah. And first-time home buyers, I'm hearing across the board is the hot market. And, when you look at the demographics, it's going to stay like that. It's going to be like that for a couple of years. By the way, how much did rates come down yesterday? I heard different reports on how much they went down, but it looked like a pretty big day for rates. What'd you think about yesterday, Rosa?
It was surprisingly a big drop. I wasn't expecting that much, like 0.5% on some of my clients. And I was like, what? Let's lock them now.
Wow.
Your offer accepted today.
That's like,
isn't that nice to have good news?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was probably the single biggest drop in rates I can remember. I mean, definitely one of the biggest of all time. All right, so that was good news. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's nice to have a good green day, less red.
Yeah.
No, that. Go ahead.
I have one question on the TCAs. Rosa, when you send out the TCAs, do you do those with video?
I do not. sometimes, but I want that actual conversation. So we're having, whether it be in-person Zoom or a phone conversation, to go over it together.
Yeah. And you use the interactive where, you're clicking on the, that's awesome.
I do.
That's
I
great.
love it.
Well, let's get into that. Let's get into some stories and some strategies of how you're helping consumers. Deborah and I will ask questions as we go. So, why don't you get ready to show a mortgage coach TCA, and then also, as you're showing it, tell us the story behind it. Did this client, did you give it to him in person? Did you do it over the phone and digitally? Tell us the story and then show us the strategy.
Okay. Bring up a few of the recent ones we've been doing. Okay, this one, since it's Veterans Day. So first time home buyer, single mom, wanted to buy a home. This was initial consultation, just kind of figuring out, hey, this is how loans work. Here are some options and different price points, and really talking about budget, because this was pushing her budget, but she really can't go below 400 to find a home in the area that she's in. So we talked about loan structure. We talked about, okay, you can buy a lower rate, and get a lower payment. And we talked about the temporary buy down, which is really hard to talk about with first-time home buyers, but we have to throw it in there. And then a different price point. So this set her up to go, okay, here's what I'm going to expect for payment range using about 10,000. When she got under contract, we talked about it again. The number one thing that we told her and her agent when they made offers is get credit from the seller, because that'll give opportunities, whether we buy down the rate permanently or do a temporary buy down. We just need a credit to help with that payment. And so we go, okay, you got 10,000. What do you do with it? All right, you can come in with no money, keep all your money in the bank. You can buy down that rate permanently, get closer to her 2,500 a month goal using 10,000, or you can do the temporary buy down, have that lower payment the first year. And this worked out well because you got second year payment, third year payment. Doesn't always work out that way, but it worked out well with visually. Or you can do something in between, where you can do the buy down for the first year and do a temporary, permanent, pair it with permanent. So this gave her some really good options to go, okay, what do I like here? And she did opt for the 2-1.
By the way, which I want to make sure I share the TCA, and you sent like 4 of them to me. Which one was this?
The VA buyer.
Okay. And by the way, thank you everyone who served the country. It is Veterans Day. Let's celebrate veterans. And I just, tell me if you agree with this, but I mean, the VA loan is it's a benefit. I mean, it's not a loan program. It's a benefit for serving our country. And so I just think the total cost analysis has an even extra level of value with a VA loan. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the VA loan is hands down the best loan out there. It is so good and so many amazing things you can do with it. This gives the veterans a really good visual of what they can do and how much they can save money or lower payment. So even those that want a comparison between VA and conventional, this is such a good visual of like, yeah, you're going to stay with the VA loan.
No doubt. Any questions you have? I'm going to put both of these TCAs in notes. So this is they're both going in the notes of Zoom right now. Feel free to check those out. And Deborah, any questions or comments you have on these?
Yeah. So, I noticed you mentioned the 2-1 temp buy down is kind of a hard one to explain for first-time home buyers. And I've been hearing that a lot. So I just put in the chat a link from a presentation that another mortgage coach advisor was using. He's actually using Lender Launchpad with it, but he included the mortgage coach amortization schedule in his Lender Launchpad presentation. I don't know, Dave, if you want to pull it up, we always could, but that really helped explain. I didn't even know you could pull that from Mortgage Coach. Did you know that, Rosa?
Yeah,
You could,
why don't you pull that up in a few minutes, get ready to
Okay.
show it on your screen at
Okay.
some point.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I
So
did share, oh, go ahead, Deborah. Go
I
ahead.
was just bringing that up because maybe that would help, as you're explaining that to a first-time home buyer, just showing that amortization schedule from Mortgage Coach, they can kind of visually see when the rate and the payment changes at the 12-month, 24-month, et cetera.
What are your thoughts on that, Rosa?
Yeah, I think anything like that gives more of a visual and breaks it down for them. So they can kind of compare, are they making a good financial decision?
Yeah.
Which is why I
And
like savings over 24 months, talk about that with the clients. To go, okay, well, do you permanently buy it down or do the 2-1 temp buy down? So we talk about the short term versus the long term. How soon can you refinance? Do you want to refinance? So I think all of that goes into a conversation.
How often
Well,
do you do VA loans?
Often.
And
Wow.
active duty and non-active? Do you do much active
Both.
duty?
Yeah,
I-
we have
I-
active duty around, but I have a good probably reputation and with my agents too. It's like, okay, VA, you go to Rosa.
Oh, right on.
That's awesome.
So you've got you're well known as a first-time home buyer specialist, which I think will bode well. And then it sounds like you're well known as a VA specialist in the market that you're in. Is that accurate?
I do think so. Yes. I've done a lot of trainings on it and I love the loan.
Do you now when you do that, do you use total cost analysis at all?
Always. Yes.
Ooh, we got to focus on that, guys. So a little VA training and knowing that this is a very special day. I would urge everyone, there is a VA loans playlist in the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel. I just recorded a video and posted it this morning. Make sure you check that out. I will put a link to it. It's Mike Giddens in Louisiana. Louise Staxon, who is just a legend with how much she's helped VAs from a mortgage perspective. I asked her, like, hey, who on your team should I interview about veterans loans? And she said, you got to interview Mike. And so I interviewed him. It's live on the channel. Check it out. And so let's drill down a little more on the VA training that you're doing and describe that, what you're doing. And then also you said you do show total cost analysis that sometimes. Describe that. And maybe you even have a TCA that you might use if you were doing a training right now.
Training, the main focus is focusing on the myths around VA, all the negative assumptions, and then really going, okay, here's what you can do with the VA loans, and talking through the stories of how it made a difference in not only like qualification, but if they own a home and they can use a home, buy another home using VA, and really just build wealth through real estate using the VA loan, buying multifamily, families coming together and using the VA loan. I know we say no, but there are ways in certain circumstances that make sense for the family. So I think it's dispelling some of the myths and going, hey, here's the opportunities. And then you can use, and I don't have any like really quick to bring up, but the TCA examples of like, this is how much less money it costs to invest, and the return on investment is so much more.
Yeah.
So I'm curious on the strategy. Maybe this isn't a strategy. So school me up, Rosa, if you need to. But with where rates are, have you ever done strategic meetings with agents on how you could sell a VA home loan if it's a seller at a premium through like a loan assumption, where then you can get the buyer and get the next deal? Obviously because you don't benefit necessarily from the loan assumption, but if you can help them buy their next home, have you ever seen in all the markets that you've been in where maybe that's a strategy to consider with?
It is definitely a strategy now to consider. So I've just recently really been talking about this. So one agent specifically I met with yesterday and we talked about it, and I said, okay, anybody, this is how you know if they have an assumable loan. This is how it the concept of how it works so that she can start using it with her listings. And then she and I have a mutual client who is a veteran, but Anna has a down payment. So assuming somebody's loan makes sense for her. So if she found a home the other day that has a VA loan on it that's listed for sale, and she's like, wow, I could assume that loan if I like the house and save so much more money. And it's true. So to me, it's more about helping my realtors and clients of whatever's best for them. I have not done any official training. It's just talks, right?
Yeah. Well, that's where it starts. Conversations lead to conversion. But Dave, I'm curious, is there a sales boomerang alert that would help with, just automating some of that process? And maybe Rosa, you're already doing this. Do you use sales boomerang? Do you guys have that where you're at?
We have it. Yes.
Is there an alert that lets you know, if it's an FHA loan or VA loan, anything like that, Dave?
Not a FHA VA. We do have a reverse mortgage alert, and I do think we have a refi. I'll look up the alert, some type of FHA refi alert, which if rates keep coming down, those rate and term alerts are going to get nice. And Rosa, make sure if your team hasn't already that your integration with Mortgage Coach is working, because as interest rates do start laddering down, it comes with an automated total cost analysis. So the TCA actually gets created by Sales Boomerang. So just something important to be ready to jump on as the market curves. Were you aware of that, by the way?
No, that Sales Boomerang and Mortgage Coach talked. No, it makes sense, but I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah.
So Dave, what does that mean? Does that mean
Yeah,
it reads your client and it will actually send a TCA in the right?
It will create the total cost analysis. And so, this is what the alert looks like for the rate watch alert. This is what it looks like over here. Now, again, depending on what CRM you have, and anyone watching this, there's different ways that it integrates with different platforms. But yeah, it'll create that TCA. It'll do a first version of that, and then you can augment it. Like it created it. Now the team member can, we always recommend when it comes to rate and term refis, show the power of prepaying the mortgage. Hey, what if you took that money and prepaid your mortgage? That you would need to add in. That's what it does. What about the cash out alerts? Are you getting those, Rosa? Where you really, you're seeing, hey, they've got debt, they have equity. This family has, 114,000 in tappable equity. Do you do many debt consol refis?
We have. It's nothing that we focused on probably in the last 6 months. But I think coming up, especially as the cost of living is higher, I think we're going to start seeing that a little bit more this next year.
No doubt. So guys, we are a little past halftime. I want to stay tactical on this, and remember, community, if you have questions for Rosa, let us know what questions you have. But let's do another total cost analysis. A story and a strategy. What's another one that you got? And
this is Sony. They have 200,000 to 300,000 to put down, but what's the best loan strategy for them? So this is more about strategy because of pricing comparison between conventional and jumbo rates. So this was the initial consultation, introducing them to, and this is me bringing value to them of like, what's the right loan program for you? And then introducing the 2-1 buy down, which we can do with conventional, we don't have, or they can do a permanent buy down with jumbo. So this is my initial consultation. And they're like, hey, we love the jumbo option. Great. Just know you're going to jump through a few more hoops. That's what we're going to pre-approve you for. And we had that great conversation. Then when they're under contract, we already know the bucket that we're in. So then it's more about strategy of which rate. So we know we need to stick with this loan amount. which rate do we do and what makes sense short-term and long-term. And so we really talked about that savings over 24 months because they're most likely going to have a refinance opportunity. So what's the best strategy for them? And really all of these were fine.
Well, and I love how clean, like just some of the basics of how you, and I noticed this in your other TCA, how you title your columns and the amount of yellow that you have highlighted. You make it very clear for people to focus and understand what their options are. And I just point that out because it seems like it would be an obvious, but sometimes I have seen TCAs come over and there's so many words on the header that it's kind of confusing what you're trying to really show, or there's so much highlighted that I would think that some people would get lost. Although I do like that you make it interactive, so you're actually clicking, which
Yes.
is a great tool to keep people following along, especially when you're ADD. It's like teaching kids. So just, it's very clean, it's simple, you make it organized. And, a lot of times I think people overlook that or almost don't even make that part of their strategy when it comes to your presentation skills when you're using a TCA. So good job.
The hardest
on
part
that.
of a TCA is how to title it, honestly. I get it all in, then I got to think about how to title it. But the TCA is a journey in my mind. What journey do I want to take my client on, and to what result? What's our goal and what's our result, I guess.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think it's great. Can you imagine doing this as $100 million producer without a tool like this? I don't know how people do it, honestly.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah.
I've just done this for so long.
Yeah, I want to make sure what was just said really gets called out, because we're in a market where there's a difference between a pre-approval and under contract, like a really, really big difference. And it's I'm not going to say pre-approvals are easy, but compared to like pre-approval and get someone into contract, like it ain't so easy, and for 2 years prior to this, 2020 and 2021, lenders and loan officers didn't need to worry about under contract. It's like, hey, a pre-approval, it was going to get under contract. It was just a question of when and how many offers they'd go through. And now it really requires this education. And I love the quote, innovation team, maybe even call this out, where Rosa talked about, you need to tell a story and you need to create a narrative for the consumer that's fact-based and it's personalized. Like, this is what makes her special, is that she's put a lot of care into that client story. You can just tell the care that's coming off it. You can tell, like, the hardest part is labeling it. Like, that's creating a header for the headline for the book, and then titling it so that the people just, this is easy, I got it. And Deborah, I hadn't put my finger on it, but you were right. Like, as she was walking these through, like, wow, these are really well organized. These are really well thought out. These are like super simple. So I would just recommend
Makes
everybody,
a difference.
Yeah, really make note of that. Like, that is our job, to get homes in contract. So
the other thing I noticed though with both of them is she started with the root problem, where the first example was, I have a $10,000 seller credit. What's my best strategy? Which is what is renting space in your client's head. Like, here we have this credit. What is the best strategy? And how do you know which one is if you're not showing them the cost over time and proving it with data? So that was the first root problem, where you then were the strategist. And then the second one was, okay, we have all this money to put down. Once again, what's our best strategy? And how else do you show options side by side where it is very clear? Because that's what a great sales professional does, is you help people make decisions with more confidence, more security, and more certainty. And so how else do you do that while making it about them? Like, this is their real problem that they have. And every single TCA is a story to tell. That's why I'm really big. My challenge to you, Rosa, would be, what if you shared this story? And you could keep the names confidential, but if every Tuesday, I call it TCA Tuesday, you told this story as a one-to-many, whether it went as a mass email to all clients or agents or on social, just to plant the seeds that there's somebody out there who may be delaying homeownership simply because they don't know that these options or strategies exist. And so how else can we get that message out there before they raise their hand? of being interested in the process. It's like, that's where social can really get people to raise their hand faster while building trust quicker.
Right. See the story and identify with it.
Yeah. And going about the real root problem, like here I have that is, I've heard this now quite a bit where people will say, I have this credit from the seller. Should I buy down the rate? Should I, buy out MI? Should I, they don't know what their best option is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a trend of multiple TCAs. I want to show my screen real quick, Rosa. This is one of the most popular interviews in the past month, and it's called "Date Your Rate, Marry the House, Divorce the Rent." And the way Jeremy did this is he did, a seller buy down. So he showed affordability options, and I'm kind of putting all of these under that affordability options. Like, how can we create, whether it's an ARM, whether it's a 2-1 buy down, a seller buy down, affordability options. And then he's showing the future date. And this was a first-time home buyer. So he kind of tells this story and strategy. And then he does a rent versus own, where it's like, hey, this is how it works up front. And then here's a rent versus own that shows the benefits of buying the home. Is that a sequence that you do very often for your first-time home buyers?
I don't really do the rent to own analysis that much.
Yeah.
But now that first-time home buyers is such a focus, I feel like I need to revisit that, definitely. But again, each client's a little different. I'm trying to figure out from the initial interview what's important to them. And in that TCA, how do I address that?
Let me show you a few things. Tell me your candid thoughts on this. But this was from an interview about 3 weeks ago. This loan officer was having its first year in the business. Did $1 million the month before, his 9 months, so he's off to a good start. This was a referral from a realtor, and the buyer had said, "You know what? I'm going to wait a year." Like, rates had gone up so much that the buyer just, "Hey, I'm getting on the fence. I'm not ready to buy." And then what he did is he showed some affordability strategies, like, hey, now's a good time to buy as a first-time buyer because sellers will cooperate. And then he showed a house hacking strategy where, like, what if you rented out 2 of the bedrooms and you invested that with a financial advisor? And then he showed him, hey, there's different ways of making money. And now that buyer is in escrow. What are your thoughts on house hacking strategies like that?
I never thought to put that in the TCA. So there's strategies when I'm talking with a client, they're like, okay, well, this is higher than rent. So we talk about the opportunities of building wealth and home ownership, and okay, you can rent out rooms, but being able to visually show that would be more impactful.
Yeah, and that's what we built this for. I mean, the big difference with the hang on, I want to make sure you see my screen one more time. That's what we built this for, was so that it would really show that net worth difference. So in that bottom column, you can really call out the net worth. Another, actually, one of the loan officers in your market, Pacific Northwest, Cody Touche, I interviewed recently because he does a lot of, he's always like, how can I help this family build wealth with real estate? And so he consistently does a rent versus own, where in the one column he shows the rent, and then he shows what you could buy and keep the payment the same. People always want to keep the payment the same. And then he shows a strategy where, hey, or you could buy a duplex, buy something, do a house hack strategy, and look at the wealth benefit of that. That's just another idea.
Wow.
So maybe you start doing more rent versus owns. What do you say?
I'm thinking so. Yes.
All right. Well, let's see where that goes. So I know you got a couple others, and I again, this is Veterans Day. So if you have another VA, I would love to hear another VA story and strategy. Also, anyone watching this, please, if you have helped, done a VA loan in the past 30 days and you've used a mortgage coach, we'd love to see some links. We're looking for, like, what are some of the best stories powered by mortgage coach where we're helping VA buyers out there in the market. So please share any links down below in comments. So what else you got, Rosa?
Okay. This one. So this is a repeat buyer. They've been looking for a home for a few months. And so this is their under contract. VA loan, they had money to put down. So it was really talking about, well, what's the best use of their money? How much money do you want to put down? Because we hadn't really determined that. And all of these payments were above their original target. So it was more about balancing out that payment versus cash to close for them. So I went with the 5% down because it has that discount with the VA funding fee with different interest rates, looking at savings over 24 months because figuring they'll be able to do the VA interest rate reduction loan, and then comparing it to 10% down if they put more money. So really just focused, okay, you could put more money down, your payment's 39. Or if you look at that 24 months, the second option had the most savings over 24 months, or your payment could be a little bit higher, $350 higher, but look how much money that you're saving and keeping in the bank. So they actually chose option 2 because to them that made more sense to keep more money in the bank.
Love it. The way you're giving advice, how simple you're doing it. Who's creating this? Is your team creating the total cost analysis? Are you creating it? Is it a hybrid? You know, what is your process?
The team creates them. I have someone on my team who's been with me a long time, and she knows a little bit more how I think. I can't help but tweak them, but the team gets the basics in there for me.
That's great.
Love that. So
any tips, Rosa, just if we looking at where inventory is headed, you know, obviously it's still tight and it's probably going to continue to get tighter. And if rates drop like we think they will continue to do, was there any strategies that you used to help VA offers get accepted, especially like kind of at the start of this year, or any advice around that?
What I found was helpful is trying to have conversations with the agents when offers were made, and trying to being very clear, like, hey, it is a VA buyer, but like, don't be scared, you know, this is how it really works, and really talking it up, but also saying, hey, worst case scenario, something happens, my client can do a conventional loan or can do another loan program. Not that we've ever had to do that, but I think that just gives them a little bit more assurance and confidence that this loan will close.
That's awesome.
Anything, you know, obviously you're going to close the year as strong as you can. Is there anything you're doing in preparing for next year? You know, whether it's, hey, I see these trends and I'm doing this. Is there any initiatives you have of things that you want to do more of, or you want to lean into for next year? Just things that you're doing to prepare for the future.
Definitely more educational. The first time home buyer classes where we didn't, you know, with COVID, we didn't do them. And then I've been slow to put them in place. And I'm like, this is a real big priority for next year is education. And definitely first time home buying is one of them.
Now, will that be like face-to-face? Will that be via Zoom, like virtual? What is that? Is it a once a month thing?
Yeah, so definitely face-to-face.
Okay.
But I do want to add in, I don't want to do like a full home buyer class Zoom. I just can't wrap my head around that. But I want to somehow, and I'm still trying to ponder how to make this work, but some's like Zoom, like shorter Zoom, answering specific questions, lead them into maybe an in-person class with more details. I just feel like education is going to be more the key this next year because so much is going on in the world and the economy and adding fear, and just that gives people confidence.
And then how do you drive butts to the seats? Do you partner, like, do you target apartment complexes, insurance agents? How do you fill those rooms typically?
Well, I have an amazing database So
Weird.
that helps my number one right there. Two, I have this huge list of people that we've talked to that haven't bought yet, right? So being very targeting them, people I've talked to but scared to go to the next step. Okay, they're getting a phone call from us. And then definitely whatever realtor I'm working with, that they're leveraging that too.
That's great.
I interviewed Hunter Markor a couple of weeks ago, coach for the Corps, which I believe you're getting coached by the Corps. But he was saying that he was given the homework assignment to all of his people that he's coaching to go and have one-on-one meetings with realtors. And it was all around affordability strategies. And he was using the total cost analysis. So he wanted to make sure everyone knew how to do that. And they were having these and he really emphasized one-on-one, get and meet with them. Is that something you've done, or is that something you think is a good idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've definitely been focused on is doing that one-on-one meetings with our partners. Just going, hey, how are you doing? What do we need to do to help? And they're meeting now. They're not as busy, right? So I'm like getting some good FaceTime and some good lunches and coffees, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, no, I heard that also. I interviewed Jeremy a couple of days ago, and he said it's never been easier to get meetings with realtors.
Yeah.
What about, have you done any targeting of specific realtors, specific properties, created like a strategy that might help that listing agent? Have you done anything like that?
There's a lot of cool stuff I should do. As far as targeting realtors, I like to leverage the relationships I have, or the opportunities I have, I should say. So, I have 18 purchases closing this month. Who am I talking to? I'm talking to those buyers and those the buyer's agent and the listing agent. So leverage those opportunities. And I'm spending a little bit longer on the phones with them because they're answering their phone a little bit more. And then I had like one listing agent. She's like, wow, I'm really impressed. And I didn't ask her for coffee. She's like, does a lot of business. I was even afraid to call her, which just feels so dumb at this point, but it's true. And she's like, I really respect you. Let's meet for coffee. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's do that.
Now, do you have something embedded in your process where you're asking the client for a referral? Even maybe at the time you get an executed contract, are you planting little seeds of, if we wow you throughout, or when we exceed all of your expectations, can we earn a 20-minute appointment with you? Like, is there anything that's consistent and strategic within the process? Because Jeremy mentioned this on one of the calls, where he's always looking to fill his pipeline by making sure every client that closes this month is giving him a referral that he can work for next month. And then also, working the deal where you're going after the agent. But I didn't know if you had a systematic process that you've embedded to make sure you're doing the same.
Definitely in the email and the touch points at different points in the process. We tweaked, we're not so good verbally on that. So we definitely did some tweaks the last few months so that our Tuesday phone calls, when we're talking to in-process clients, that we're being a little bit more specific on that. And we had our most current client referrals this last month.
Wow.
It was it went from like 1 to 2 to 7. And I'm like, okay, that just one tweak changed it that much.
Yeah. Now, what about getting reviews?
What was the one tweak? By the way, I want to make sure we really capture that, because
asking on Tuesday. So I have I call him my loan concierge that talks to a client every week from like lead to close, and they started asking on Tuesday. Or if there's keywords like, hey, you guys have been doing an amazing job, we're so impressed. Great. Is there anybody else that you know? So just that one tweak on Tuesday phone calls.
So guys, I want to just put an exclamation mark, because just those little tweaks go a long way. And this is still one of the most watched interviews. Well, it wasn't an interview, it's a 2-minute video on how Jeremy asked for referrals. And by the way, he doesn't It's not verbal. It's just an email. And I think the only nuance, Rosa, is that he times it for when they say thank you. You know, it's like when the customer says thank you, he then hits them with this email, and he says he gets like one of his top lead sources. So just make note, everyone. That's one of Rosa's things, and just little tweak, turn it on. And by the way, 18 loans this month. Congratulations. Who else wants to close 18 loans this month? So great job in this market.
Thank you.
Dave, do you want me to share my screen and show y'all the presentation with the amortization schedule?
Yeah,
Or-
yeah. And then we got
Okay.
5 minutes, so be quick. And then Rosa,
Okay.
be ready for a closing thought. You know, this is your first time in the mortgage coach community. Any closing words of wisdom?
So this, Rosa, in case you haven't seen it, this is called Lender Launchpad, which integrates with Mortgage Coach. And this is just a link that was either texted or emailed to a client. And when you open it up, this one happens to be a pre-approval. So he, puts his letter here, integrates with Google reviews and experience.com. So this is always included in every presentation. And then he puts the TCA where it's him explaining, the different options. He decided to include the tax statement, but you keep scrolling, and this is where he put the amortization schedule to help the client understand the breakdown for the same reason. Like some people just get really confused with, temporary buy downs, but this is just a really cool delivery mechanism of how you could deliver a TCA, but it's all in one link. And then the newest thing I've seen a lot of people start doing is what's called a client dashboard, where they save, it's always the same link. And if they interchange the TCAs throughout the process, then they just add it here. But this client dashboard stays with them for life. So the moment that this loan eventually, and you can add things like your handbook, you can put the agent's contact information, which is nice, different maybe videos that you would want them to refer back to, or if they end up sharing the link with mom and dad. But as this evolves, it will then go to closing, and they'll have a copy of like the final CD and the mortgage strategy that's going to be executed, and they just embed this link into their CRM. So then it makes it really easy when it comes time to annual asset reviews, because you have the homeowners deck page right there and the property taxes. And so it's just kind of a hub for your one spot for clients. And now I'm starting to see people do kind of a very similar thing with agents, or they'll have like a seller concession cheat sheet, and it's just one link of different educational resources for agents, where the loan officer stays very loyal to as a business partner. So it's a pretty cool, Lender Launchpad's only $99 a month, integrates with experience.com and Mortgage Coach, and it's makes it super modern and slick, where you just have one link and it can have all of this together. So
Cool.
that's
So put a link somewhere so people can check that out.
Okay.
And so Rosa, let's do a closing thought. We got just a couple minutes left, but you've got a bunch of local referral based loan officers. Any closing thoughts for everyone?
I would say leverage what you have. We're always looking for the new thing, the new people, but leverage what you have. Don't forget about the clients who love you and use you, and the partners who love you. Start there.
Yeah, I'm going to dogpile on that. I interviewed Chris Johnston yesterday, or maybe a couple of days ago, and he talked about how so many loan officers are chasing kind of like the new idea, but they're not calling their database. They're not like if you're not making your database your number one priority, then you don't have time to do other things. Like if you really treat your database right, you're not only going to have loans for life, you're going to have more power with the realtors that you serve. And Rosa, I can only assume realtors feel like, hey, not only are they can count on you to deliver a great transaction, they can count on you to make sure that if there is a referral, you're going to get it out of that. Do you give a lot of referrals back to your realtors because you're so good with the database?
I do, because I know who they worked with, right? And so one of my top realtors said that to me a few years ago. One of the reasons we use Rosa is because we know she's going to bring our clients back. And it's true. So I think that's the number one way that I've been able to give back to the realtors.
So guys, did you hear that? That was the big takeaway of the day, is she has built a practice in a system so that they're not even worried about the next deal. That's like for gone. They're coming back. Like, she's going to amplify the value of that client over time. It's like beyond a conversion partner. It's like they look at her as if I want to have a client for life, I want to have Rosa take care of this client. So, hey, congratulations. You are inspiration to our industry, a role model. And I know you don't love getting on these kind of stages and doing this, but just know you're making a difference. And I'm super grateful for it.
All right. Appreciate you too. Thank you.
All right, guys, this is a wrap. If you got value from this, give it a like, share it on social media. There's just so much gold. All the total cost analysis that she went through and described, those will be in the show notes below. So if you want to go there, and they're just a shining example of simplicity and labeling the story so that the consumer, one, they feel that you know them, and two, they're getting great value to make a more confident decision. So thank you, Rosa. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.